Welcome to the Microsoft Security Insights Podcast with your hosts, Franklin Grimberg and Edward Walton, where we discuss Microsoft 365 security and Azure security news and products. Recorded November 9th, 2022. Good afternoon, Brody. Good afternoon, Rod. How are you guys doing?
Excellent. You almost forgot your intro there, Edward. Almost. Yeah.
I don't know what happened. It must be the beer.
It must be the beer. Hey,
It's after 11 o'clock somewhere, right, Edward?
Yeah.
You guys wait till 11 to drink? You're defeating the purpose
at home or in the Caribbean.
Man, no. It's sometimes I get confused on whether we're doing the reactor thing. That's a different way we have to do it on the Microsoft channel and this and that. I don't know.
That's next week, by the way.
So I really want to cover this very interesting topic and show a really cool feature / tool / invent that Andrea and Mike, and it might be another person I think I saw on the Git, and what it does to help look at what your security incidents are, triage, and a few other things. So I want to make sure we don't consume all the time. But Brody, what did you do interesting this week?
Well, first off, I watched my hockey team, the Winnipeg Jets, take first place in the division. So I am all decked out today. I'm a very happy camper because last year was a bad year for the boys, but they're back. They're back at it. And this week I've been, I've had a really great time at mentoring a few consultants on a project that I'm working on. They have been doing a great job. One's been following me on Defender for Endpoint implementation and review with a customer, an education customer in the United States. And the other has just been like absolutely stellar with working with the customer on a number of identity fronts. And I get this like proud parent feeling, I guess. So I see them just killing it. And the one, she just learned what PowerShell was yesterday and how to connect to and I'm like, she's like, I can't get PowerShell to run. I'm like, oh, tell me more, tell me more. I'll help you. We've been through that. It's just been amazing. It's one of those, I love my job and I'm working with some really cool projects and customers, but I really love being a mentor right now. I feel like I'm having a lot of impact. And these two individuals came from the Aspire program and they're just super keen, and they didn't grow up in the same era that we did. Like I grew up trying to break computers for fun and I made it a career, and they're coming out of school wanting to be cybersecurity professionals, and they're getting it on the ground floor with one of the most premier organizations on the planet. Like they've got the whole future ahead of them, and I couldn't be happier. So I'll just leave it there. I'm just super happy for them, and anybody out there who wants to get into this field right now, it's just a great time.
Make sure you put it on your Connect.
Oh yeah, don't worry, it's in there. Yeah.
Shameless self-promotion is what I was told on my team meeting. We need to be more self-promoting. I'm like, okay, yeah. Cool, very cool. I had one interesting technical thing that's really making me scratch my bald head. I told Andrea about it, but we're going to hold off because she and I are going to investigate this. And if this operates the way I think it is, I've found a very peculiar nuance in MDE and Sentinel. Oh yeah.
Okay.
So Andrea and I, we're going to track this down. I showed it to the people on my team. Egan was stumped, Ren was stumped. Everybody had theories, but it didn't line up. And I'm like, I'm telling you, this is what I saw. So we're going to save it for the next show. Andrew and I are going to beat on it a little bit. As far as the rest of the week, pricing conversations, POC stuff. I'm reading a great article from one of our guests that's going to be coming on out of Central Europe, Thomas Nurum. He's going to talk about how to protect identities from an Azure Active Directory perspective. And he wrote a really good article on LinkedIn about how MDA, Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, MDI and Azure Active Directory / Azure Active Directory identity protection, and how to defend that, right? How do you make sense of impossible travel, brute force, suspicious logins and stuff? So I'll have him booked out. He wants to do a 2-part series because I don't think we can squeeze his stuff in. But other than that, I really haven't broken anything. Oh yeah, and I got another guest that's going to come on. Richard Diver recommended a guy named Gavin, and he was there when I can't say the company unless he gives me permission. When they had a massive ransomware and what they had to do to get out of it. Right.
Cool.
So
That's
he's like, if you don't get this guy on the show, you're missing out. And what else? I got a note saying there's a wasp nest outside my window. The wasp was just waiting to get in. That's all I've done this week. We starting to go to holiday routine. Rod Trent, what did you break?
Yeah, Rod, what's up with you?
Broke my sanity. No, it's been a busy week. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. I think a lot of us put a little extra pressure on ourselves toward the holiday to try to get things completed and finished and off our plate so that we can actually take some time with family. So we have 2 weeks till Thanksgiving. We have another 6 weeks after, 6 weeks after that for Christmas. I absolutely enjoy the holidays, so I'm trying to finish everything up. I'll be in Orlando next week. Tech Mentor. I was at the Redmond version earlier this year. There's one in Orlando next week. I'll be there all week. I have my stack of Must Learn KQL books ready to go with me. Yeah, there you go. Oh, there's the cup. By the way, there's more. There's some seasonal KQL merch, by the way, at the KQL Must Learn KQL merch store.
Sweet.
All proceeds, of course, go to St. Jude. So that's why I do that.
So seriously, what happened to the Must Learn KQL cookies? Like, you teased us with the cookies.
I ate them. They were so good. I was just going to eat one.
Yeah.
They were
likely story.
I'm going to get some more. They were They were amazing. So yeah, my daughter actually, she snuck one too. So they were gone. And
past behavior says even if you get more, we won't see the light of those cookies. Won't see light of day. They're doomed.
Those were awesome. I've been thinking about it. Might run some kind of Must Learn KQL contest here shortly, where I will actually send those to somebody. So we'll see what I come.
I wonder if it'll look like cookies if you send them up here to me in Canada. They'll be KQL crumbs by the time they arrive.
Or somebody will give them away. What else? Oh yeah, we might be able to talk about this in the near future. Working with our MVP security MVP group today, starting on a new project. Maybe one of these days we'll actually be able to get Frank in the MVP program, since I'm getting more closely aligned with those folks. But they're interested in starting up a podcast network for our MVPs, and maybe this might be something that we can help promote as well. So there's all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah, and speak of work not getting done in a year, Rod keeps volunteering me. So I'm on this basic log pricing thing.
Oh, did they? Yeah, okay.
Andrea makes this face. Yeah.
So I dropped that. I gave him your name and I dropped out. So that's good.
And then something else you put me on and say, Ross said, talk to you. So I'm on that.
What was that?
You love pricing conversations, Edward.
What was that?
It was another pricing thing or something.
No.
Someone reached out to me and said, hey, Rod Trent said you'd be interested in working with us on this thing. I'm like, sure.
So I have to ask, did you do something similar to me? Because
of course I did.
There's this individual, I'm not going to mention her name. Over the past week, they're reaching out to me, of course. People do that all the time, but this one has just been so insistent. I'm like, well, this is not my role. I'll answer the question. You give it to the customer. They come back with the next question. I'm like, well, you really need to talk to a CSA or a GBB. They're going to help you with this. But the next day they come back, well, here's the next question. It's just like they totally ignore me trying to
unless you actually divulge the name.
Yeah,
you know,
well, I'll tell you
okay.
later.
Maybe it was me. I don't know.
Yeah. And then I get an email today, and they include the customer on the email. Well, here's our Sentinel SME. Here's this.
Sorry.
I'm loving Andrew's reactions.
So is Andrea. Okay.
I'm forgetting that we're not just chatting.
It's a casual podcast. This is great. Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah. I may be guilty. I may not. It's according to who you tell me this person is after we finish the pod. But I dropped Brody's name when people start getting deeper into security compliance stuff and zero trust and all that. DLP. I dropped Brody's name. I said, hey, I got a friend up here. he knows this stuff. I don't really know this stuff.
Yeah.
Uh,
I use
but
Brody to just for someone to blame something, right? So Brody did
I'm
it.
the consultant. I'm here to be blamed. That's half.
It's
of my
like
role.
you blame the dog
Yeah.
for when somebody farts. That's the same.
it's the dog.
Yeah.
Even the cat blames the dog. It was him.
Yeah.
Right.
No doubt.
But so we don't consume everything. Pretty atypical week. Getting ready to wind down a little bit, but I'd like to go ahead and introduce our guests. So we have two guests that are coming on that's going to show us some really cool stuff about what they've been working on and how it can help you do triaging, risk scoring, incident response, decision making. One of them is a good buddy of mine. Goes without open disclosure. Miss Andrea Fisher. She's taught me more about MDE than I've gotten wrong. I convinced her to join the team with me years ago. Oh, we worked on the partner side first. Then we came over. This is not her first foray into developing a solution that can be adopted, because she and I worked on a project that had a lot of legs called Fish Hunter that we had to go back, take over, and we totally reworked it. Everything from the back end database, going away from SQL to Cosmos DB, rewriting it from ASP to .NET Core. That was a good year on working, and we renamed the product. It's still out there. It's called Malicious Activity Detection Accelerator. Is that what we came up with? MATA?
Yep.
People are still using it.
Yeah. It was very popular.
Let me tell you how you know your product is good. And Mike, take notes. When CELA reaches out to you and says, stop.
I forgot that. Oh, Lordy.
When the Microsoft legal team says, you two stop, because the product team is not happy with you. Like, hey, I ain't got nothing to do with that, right? So we also like to get Mike Palitto. Did I say it right?
Palitto.
Mike, he gets zero names right.
We can
Zero
never
names.
get names.
Yeah.
That's right. We love him anyway.
Yeah.
So Mike's a CSA, and I believe if I done my homework, you cover SLG or either or retail.
State and local government.
Yep. Okay. Yep. So without further ado, I'll let you two introduce yourselves more properly. Andrew, you go first, and then Mike, and then we'll get into the presentation. Brody, myself, and Rod will be monitoring the Discord channel. We'll answer any questions that we can on the comment side, and I'm sure people that are listening to this and are watching this are going to have a lot of questions. We'll get your information so they can contact you. We'd like to get your amplification presence, meaning LinkedIn, Twitter, anything you want. We'll make sure everybody's out there. Without that, Miss Fisher, the floor is yours.
Hey, everyone. As Edward said, my name is Andrea Fisher. I have been at Microsoft for 10 and a half years now, and in IT for, more than half my life. I don't know how I got so old, but I also work in state and local government with Mike. That is how this project began, but I will let Mike introduce himself.
Hey, everyone. Mike Palitto. I've been here, a year and a half now, so maybe that's still old now, right? So
Yeah.
I came out of the MSSP, incident response, building SOC operations for a large MSSP. So I'm real passionate about, what I do at Microsoft is I build SOCs around our tools and help operationalize them and bring the best of the best. So good to be here. Excited to show you our little project we've been working on for 6-9 months now, right, Andrea?
Yeah.
Nice.
So Mike and I were working with a customer out west to deploy Sentinel. Though I think some of what we're going to talk about is just theory, so it doesn't matter what SIM you're using. SIEM, I say SIM because I'm old and we didn't used to say SIEM. But so some of what we're going to talk about is sort of the logic behind this idea, and then we'll talk about the practical application. But we had a customer who was just overwhelmed by the number of alerts and incidents they were getting. How do we know which ones to start with? And that's sort of where this was born. Mike, do you want to say anything about that in particular?
Yeah, I think that the passion here is our events, our customers they don't want 1,000 events to pay attention to. They want to know what's important and how do we bubble that to the top with all the telemetry that's coming into a SIM, and we have to correlate that. But I think some of the exciting part, Andrew, we have to mention is that I think there's a new age of SIM coming out where we start asking other tools what they think about the incident, right? We may not have collected that information in the SIM, but now we can go ask these other tools, hey, what does this user's risk look like? What does this endpoint's risk look like? So I think there's a lot of exciting aspects about this, from enrichment to bubbling to the top. So a lot here to talk about.
So that's what we just wanted to start with talking about here. What was the main problem? I threw a couple of slides together just because, what do we got? We have
we love slides, Andrea. We love slides.
Is it? Oh, dang it. So, right, there's so much data coming in. I don't know why I just sounded Canadian when I said that. There's so much data coming into the.
It's so uncontrollable.
You're like a chameleon.
So, right, we've got data coming in from everywhere into the SIM, right? Whatever your SIM is, whatever your solutions are, we got on-premises stuff, we got cloud stuff, we got threat intelligence coming in, we got stuff coming in from Linux, we got it coming in from Windows, we got it coming in from Palo, or different antivirus solutions, whatever it is, we have data that's coming in, right? And we've got raw data coming in every day, and most places are having hundreds of thousands of events, if not more. And this is just a sample of what we've seen at some different places, right? Hundreds of thousands of events per day that get correlated down to 300 alerts. Then we try to correlate those individual alerts together to create incidents, right? Are they the same on the same person, the same timestamp, the same IP, the same host name, right? That helps us get them together to incidents. And then if your tool is fancy enough, maybe we can even fix some of those ourselves, right? Maybe we disable a user, maybe we block a URL in a firewall, maybe we do some of that stuff. But that's still, and again, this is just an average of what we've seen, that still leaves us with 10 incidents per day, right? And then we talk about that. The average incident resolution time of a complex incident that, right, can't be solved by self-healing is about 6 hours, right? So we have 6 hours times 10 incidents per day. You're never catching up. That is too much time.
Standard workday for every security professional. Yeah.
100%, right? But so what do we need? We need faster and more efficient investigation, right? So this is just a screenshot, and we'll show the real thing in a minute. But this is my Sentinel lab over the last 30 days. And you can see I have 134 incidents.
Oh, you're busy.
That's, all kinds of junk. You can see password sprays in here, right? Brute force attacks, all kinds of just simple multiple failed user logon attempts, right? But what Mike and I were trying to do, and Mike, jump in here, was come up with, a scoring mechanism. What do I need to pay attention to first? Certainly every SIM does some kind of scoring of itself, right? Some kind of severity level, high, mediums, and lows, and informationals. But we had this idea to start scoring them. I'm going to stop talking, Mike, and let you jump in there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you've got some. This is maybe doesn't quite look like a normal environment. You probably have a script or something that's running some of these attacks, right? But it's a good example of first thing we're doing is we're tagging an incident, right? We're tagging it right with you can see what that tag is. It says StaT, and then we got low risk, and then we have a score. So tags are really super important because we can create other automations to then do other things. Like Andrea said, if we meet a certain threshold, we may want to take action, or we may want to post something in Teams or send an email to the SOC shared address. So yeah, lots we can do once we start tagging and enriching.
And I think that's some of the flexibility of what we're going to talk about is maybe I just want to enrich incidents, right? Maybe I don't want to take action, and we'll look at what an enriched incident looks like in a second. Maybe we're just going to tag them like Mike was talking about, and we can either escalate or resolve. And then what can we look at? Now, some of the things that we're looking at, and again, once we started down this idea, and I wish Brian could have joined us, but Brian Delaney is out of Canada. Maybe that's why I was sounding like a Canadian. Ryan had built a module called the Sentinel Triage Assistant, and I can't remember what the final T stands for. And it's out on GitHub. And so he was already sort of going down the path, and there's a million different ways you could do this kind of scoring. So you could write your own scoring mechanism inside your sim. There are some third-party tools that do some stuff like this. So that's up to you. But what we started at, what did we want to look at, and then how we did it are two different things, right? So Mike, you want to talk about sort of the idea behind the things we wanted to look at for scoring purposes?
Yeah, but first we want to mention is one of the things that the base module does, you'll see in this, is it normalizes the entities coming from the incidents and the alerts under the incidents, right? That's the important part of a sim, right? A sim should be really good at finding we need these entities, we call them, right? And typical entities, IP address, username, host name, URL, domains. Those are just a few, and we want to normalize that data. So I think that, to me, Andrew, that's where it all starts. So if your sim isn't getting all that type of entity data, right? Because that's the data we're going to use to pivot and do some of our further enrichment. But no, I think this is I think what Andrea and I are saying is that these are some representations of modules that we're using, but you can add your own, right? You can add your own KQL modules to look at your Zscaler logs or your WAF type logs. So yeah, lots of flexibility.
Yeah, and that's honestly, we'll look at some of the different ways that you can do it, and that's why we kind of like this idea. Is we are with this idea again. It's like it's not a product; it's a GitHub project. But if it is something that y'all are struggling with, like I said, too many incidents, what do I look at first? You can walk through the process and decide what you want to score and how you want to deal with those scores. And again, this is just after implementing our playbook over the last 30 days, I went from, what did I have, 134 incidents to 25. So, and if we're just looking like over the course of a day, we can see, the idea is you're probably not going to go to the main page of your sim tool anymore. And this is where actually you get the module we're talking about, but I'm going to get out of here and let's jump into my actual demo environment here. So you can see this is my Sentinel lab, like we said, and these are, mine looks a little bit different than y'all's because I have these tags, right? And you can see some of them are tagged low risk and the score, and some are tagged high risk with the score. But the goal really is to maybe not even come to this page. Maybe you're just going to come to the StaT workbook page. And here I'm looking over 30 days, but we could look easily over, let's look over, 7. And the only thing you are going to see in here are the high alerts. Only things that the risk score I have chosen is 300. Anything scored over 300 is something I need to pay attention to right now, right? I'm not saying don't look at the other things, but I'm saying these are the ones I'm going to look at first.
Yeah. So let me insert something in here to our users that may not be watching us here. So what Andrea is describing it's a solution, and the visualization of that solution is that they have a workbook, which is the visualization of KQL queries and such and stuff in Sentinel. So please make sure when you rewatch it, you'll see. So I think a lot of our listeners are probably saying, oh, it's not a product, but how do I get it? So let's stitch GitHub. You got to get through GitHub. And when it does, it puts in a workbook in Sentinel. So I just want to make sure that our user understand that it's not like an application you have to put in. This is something that you just extend out the capabilities of your of Azure Sentinel. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And for the listeners, the short link to get to this is aka.ms/mstat. MStat. Let's just call it that.
Yep.
Mike, Sierra, Alpha.
Nope.
No, you can't even get the phonetic alphabet.
What do you mean? You took it off. I couldn't read it.
The tango.
Hold on. Okay. There you go.
Yeah. Sierra, Tango, Alpha, Tango.
Okay. I like that.
You're right. I'm sorry. I apologize for the people who are not watching. I will do a better job of explaining, right? So
yeah. Oh, okay. You're doing great.
we've.
I may have to describe what I'm wearing soon for the.
Man, bye. Go ahead, Andrew. You're gonna let these yahoos go down a tangent. Go ahead. You're gonna go down the road.
Yeah, we're following. So if it's over 300, it's a high risk on the
Right.
StaT workbook in Sentinel, right?
And
Yeah.
so we talked about too. So I have the score, but we also have done some enrichment. So if I want to pivot into and look at one of these incidents from my workbook, so this is actually going to open up the traditional incident inside Sentinel. And it's going to enrich these with comments, right? So we can see how that risk score got calculated. We can see it when it looked at the Azure AD score, I got a 0. So nothing to worry about there. But you can see I had multiple related alerts, right? And we'll look at those. One of the modules does, and it will look for user, IP host. Are there any related alerts on this particular, right? Henrietta or Lynn, who are the two users that have this particular password spray attack against an Azure AD application. So it looked back because I told it to over the course of 3 days, and that could be adjustable as well, to see related alerts. And then also one of the modules is about MITRE tactics. If it finds more than 3 different MITRE tactics, it's going to give us a score, right? And so all of these added up to give us the score of 525. And you can see if I want to know more information about those related alerts, it's also looking for threat intelligence. It was looking for the AAD user risk info if you have Azure Active Directory P2. And you can just see a little bit more information. And that is just because we may just want to use enrichment. You may not want to score, right? Maybe you just want to have more information to help you decide what to do with an incident, right?
So let me throw the question out there,
Yeah.
because it seems to be the bane of my existence. How much does it cost? Let our listeners know, is this something we have to pay for, or is it something that we can just grab from the Git and put in? Does it incur any cost inside your Azure/Azure Sentinel environment?
So certainly downloading it from GitHub and running the script to get it installed does not cost anything. We are running a playbook, so which is what gives us the score. So a playbook runs on, in my particular environment, every single incident. But when you look at the overall cost of playbooks, I don't even think it ends up being $5 a month. So, and that's with thousands of incidents. That's the only thing I could think that would incur a cost. Mike, anything I'm missing?
Nice.
No, we're not really adding any more data or anything. I think it's, just the logic apps that could probably price those out. If you know the incidents in your environment, you probably could price it out pretty easily.
Can you adjust the risk scoring? Because every environment, there's certain events and occurrences that are more critical than others that that they know about. So yeah, there you go.
Absolutely. So what we just talked about is, now this is the Mac Daddy of all playbooks. We do not recommend that you start with this one. The one that Mike and I started with just had 3 modules, and that's the one that's running in your environment too, Edward. This is the one that we have written, and you can see it has base modules. So if you do have Azure Active Directory, right? We talked about, I'm looking back 3 days, but you could look back as many days as you want. And for this module is built in, and it's looking for MFA failures and if anyone has reported MFA fraud. But you could also write your own. You can write a total KQL to look at whatever you want it to look at. So for this one, I was looking for antivirus detections. And even more interesting with this particular module is I can run the query against M365 Defender or against Sentinel. So if you're not actually bringing information into Sentinel from M365 Defender, you could still query it. So that adds to me a lot of specific value.
It's pretty cool. My question is, and I sort of know the answer because myself, you, and Mike were in the environment. Getting the base modules and getting the instructions from GitHub is pretty straightforward. How do customers go about choosing the module that resonates to them most? And inside the modules where you can adjust the actual scoring. So is there a default that it installs all the modules, or just you have to choose it and build it out?
So here is the actual GitHub site. If you went into GitHub and deployed it, you could deploy all the modules, which is what I would recommend, right? This will deploy the full solution, every single one of the, 10 or so modules. And you can just deploy to Azure using the traditional method from GitHub, right? Where you just say deploy to Azure. But if you decide you don't want all of them, you can absolutely see the modules listed out here and only do the modules that you want. I only want Azure Active Directory. I only want the KQL module or the Defender for Endpoint module, right? But again, my recommendation would be do them all.
The most popular module is going to be the MCAS module. I'm just saying. Everybody loves MCAS.
But what you specifically asked, Rod, was how do we do the scoring? And that is where the fun part can happen. So not every module is scoreable either. I should mention that. And those are listed out in the GitHub. So anything that says enrichment I have not scored. If it says scored, I have scored it. But so the ones that are scoreable, you get to decide. So for my particular KQL one, I can decide they all get a score of 1, I think, to start with. And then you can do a multiplier. So I decided that if you found an AV score, I would multiply that by 5. And you could either say, if I found 7 viruses, I'm only going to multiply it by 5. Or am I going to multiply it by each, right? So if I got 7, it's 5 times 7, right?
Yeah.
Really interesting. So, to me, this seems like if we're installing all the modules as instructed on the GitHub page, out of the box, a customer or somebody who's demoing this could just start getting value right away with the default values, and there's little uplift, is what I'm seeing here, Andrea. Is that right?
100%. Yeah, this is a lot of customization, but the StaT module comes with a sample, and you can absolutely just deploy the sample right out of the box. And it just uses 3 modules, and it uses the threat intelligence, the related alerts, and the Azure AD risk. Start from there. And even, what we've done, and I'll let Mike talk about this, the recommendation is probably to start out with just scoring, right? But what the real hope is to get all the way to the point where we are, if I score it, over a certain score, look at me. Let's make it high. If it's a low score, close it and ignore me, right? That's the goal to get there, is to where we're closing stuff that does not matter. And
reducing noise, absolutely. Because that's the one thing when you start hooking up all the goodies that we get across the E5 security and compliance space to Sentinel, it's a lot. It's a lot of information coming in, right? And that can be pretty intimidating for customers who are just getting used to that. So having something like this where we build in logic to reduce that overall noise and focus on what's key is valuable, highly valuable.
Just reducing the informational alerts, right?
Yeah.
It makes a tremendous impact, because once you go in and stuff like user reported this as a fish, it shows up as an incident in Sentinel. Like, it was just a fish, right? But this is good stuff here. I didn't deploy the full module in my environment, so I didn't get all the goodies. I got light. Yeah. Well, nobody gave me that option, man.
Oh, okay. You're an early adopter. That's fair. What other automation would you recommend that customers look into if they were going to leverage this, Andrea? So outside of closing low quality incidents and adding a tag, would you start building in additional alerting, through Teams or other messaging platforms, etc.? What would you like to see from a more of a late stage automation point with this solution?
Well, honestly, I feel like I've been talking a lot. So, Mike Palitto, why don't you share your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't want to bypass that. I think the most important thing analysts look for in an incident is, do I have enough information, right? And then what do I do typically as an analyst, right? I want to look at my entities, but, do I want to do a threat intel lookup? Do I want to do a who is, right? So there's all kinds of enrichment we can do here to populate that, right? Before we even get into scoring, before we even look at any automation, I as a SOC analyst want data, right? So I think if you're if you just want to uptake this, at the initial roads, right? Start enriching it. Give your SOC analysts more data to work with, so they can judge whether this is, I love what Andrea put up there. 6 hours, man. We only have a few minutes to look at an incident, right, and say, hey, this is worthy of a deeper investigation. And I think, incident enrichment is critical, and Microsoft's doing a good job of letting us put more and more data in here, but I really think that is a key takeaway.
Yeah, when you think about what our goal was from several years back, right? So it was, remember the 11060 rule, right? Everybody remember that? This helps us get to that. So the idea was, what was it? Detect something within a minute, investigate within like 10 minutes, and then completely remediate within 60. That was,
I've heard of this.
Yeah. You've heard of that. Yeah, 11060 rule. That was kind of our goal from cybersecurity perspective. So this allows you to kind of get there, because if you're, most Sentinel environments, even though we are combining alerts into incidents, there's still a significant number of incidents sometimes.
Mm-hmm. What does the solution have intelligence to adjust the scoring if it senses that you close out, or it automatically closes out certain things? Or does this put it back on the actual SOC operator to say, okay, we've gotten these alerts in, it's scoring here, I don't even want to see them anymore? Is that something that we need to go in? I don't think the product really has AI ML sort of built into it. It's working on a static data set. So if we need to manipulate it to make sure the noise gets even less and the score gets better, it sounds like the customer needs to go in based on what they are doing and saying, yep, this is all right. Let me adjust the score on the different actual score source. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, 100%. And, one of the things that Mike and I were working on also, so when the time comes and you want to do some additional manipulation, if you're using watch lists, right? If you are using watch lists of certain high value assets, right? Or certain high value users, right? Or even the opposite way, right? If it's a particular safe IP, right? So I have a watch list of IPs that I'm not worried about. So I could certainly go into the scoring and be like, if it's in this watch list, close it. Or if it's in this watch list, subtract 50 points. Or, if it's a VIP user, add 1,000 points, right? So you can totally make those choices. So usually, I think today, doing that kind of customization you're thinking about, we'd probably do with watch lists.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and that makes sense. You answered my question before I asked, like, can I put a negative parameter to say high, but this is actually not part of our high value assets, high value targets, so subtract 100.
Yeah.
And so don't totally ignore, but don't give it as much attention as something that was on the watch list. So that makes, I didn't know that was in here. Right? That's cool.
Yeah, honestly, I wish Brian were here, because most of this, I will say, I don't even want to say most of it, 95% of all of this was Brian's idea. And all Mike and I did was come along and say, hey, can you help us score this stuff? How could we score it? And honestly, Mike and I have no idea how the behind the scenes part of this works. So like who wrote the code for all of this? So Brian, please don't ever stop doing this. But
or it was a third person that came up that wanted to talk about this on a different thing, Chris something or another. But yeah, we'd definitely love to get Brian to come on and talk about the secret sauce, what's behind it. And that way our listeners, users that consume the solution can go in and really put their hands in it and understand. And if they really want to get down and dirty to the source, copy the code, put it in there, beat it up. But also to our listeners, this goes out without any SLAs. You put it in, right? Because it's not an afford to say. It's you put it in. It is to benefit you, but we don't. This is not I won't say not a supported solution if it's in the Git, but you deploy it as an enhancement. So you can't buy this. This is something that you go in and you deploy. Right? Well, let me ask you another question. So I would assume that if a user is using Sentinel and familiar with playbooks and automation, what skill level? How hard is this to do? No, to deploy and then go in and make it useful out of the box. Is it as automatic as you said? You go in, you deploy the solution, you click deploy to Azure, get all the modules, leave it alone, come back in a few days, and then you see all the stuff.
So the deployment, 2 steps, right? You have to click that deploy to Azure button. And then there's also a PowerShell script that you can run that will give you the specific permissions that you need. It's in here somewhere. I think it's under deploy, actually. So in the GitHub, you can see the grant permissions. Yeah. And that will grant permissions, obviously, to the logic apps, right? So that's really all its job is to make sure that the logic apps have the right permissions that they need. That part is super easy. And there's a base module that you can turn on. Honestly, the hard part, if there is one, is figuring out what you want and how you want to score it. Mike and I have gone back and forth a million times on what we should be scoring and how.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, risk is subjective, right? 100 in one environment may be a 20 in another, right? Because they may have compensating controls. We got a comment from Chicken Man. He says, "Awesome, we're MSSP. Started to take on more customers, and this was help immensely." So, all right, Chicken Man. Well, if you want to put it out there and come back with some feedback, please do. And we're also going to have a new option inside of our podcast for questions, but we'll talk about it at the end of the show. So, this is
great.
I'm
bringing this up with customers tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm bringing this up with people. Yeah.
This is more involved than what Andrea put in my environment. I'm going to go back and upgrade mine so I can get the platinum edition. Because mine just got a little basic one in here, right? So
I just deployed it while we were talking. So
you did it?
Yeah, I'm playing.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
All right. Well, there you go. Yeah, it is typical Rod.
Andrea and Mike, or maybe Mike, because we want to inundate Andrea with all the questions. Like, how long have you been working on this with the team, Brian and the team? Like, what would you say your start to finish effort's been so far?
Wow. I mean, I think I'm thinking we're in 9 months, right? We've been working on this iteratively with Brian, and this isn't our full-time jobs, right? So this is
right.
Something we've got to. We're excited. We're kind of at a stage where we're really starting to tell customers about it. I'm starting to talk to them about it. I'm going to try to put it in one of my big, large customers, right? I'm excited to put it in a really big and complex environment and start seeing how they want to tune and tweak it, because this customer came out of they were a big Splunk RBA, risk-based alerting customer. So they kind of understand the scoring and entities and all that. So they're super excited about do this and to put this at play and layered in with all the other things that Sentinel can do with automation. So this thing we hope it's start of something new. But I'm Brody. We're going to get the call from Sela real quick, and they're going to tell us,
That's a sign. That's a sign, though, Mike.
I was about to say, you're successful when they call you and you get a nice little email and they CC your manager and his manager, cease and desist.
Yeah.
But you have it on Git. You obviously want to get it out there. We're going to help you promote that. You want to get feedback, amplify this to the community. I'd love to start seeing folks in our podcast community and others integrating those third-party solution signals like you were touching on earlier, Mike. Whether it's Zscaler, whether it's other security appliances or solutions ingesting that data into this, as on top of the Microsoft signals that we're ingesting on identity and devices and across the board what you've shown here today. Like, there's just so much potential here, and I think we can all agree that nobody has a perfectly staffed internal or external security operations center that can manage day to day what's happening across the world here, right? So anything we can do to gain an edge and to work on the most high priority alerts, I think, is just an outstanding piece of work that you and the team have been working on. So
I think that's an important thing to highlight too. I was talking with a customer this week, not the one that Ed won't tell me he forwarded me, but the economy right now for a lot of organizations, right? They're having to do more with less. They still want to be able to secure the environment, right? But they're finding it difficult to do that. The customers I talk to, they absolutely love Sentinel, but it can take a lot of their tasks, and they have responsibility for more than just security in their environment. Something like this is huge, giving them the ability to do this a lot more efficiently.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It makes sense. If I'm looking away, it's because I'm looking at the StaT workbook and module inside my environment, seeing some of the interesting stuff that it does. And it's up and down the board. I got some lows, a lot of highs, but not any mediums. Is that something we overlook, Andrew? How come it doesn't
We
seem like
just
I'm
said
getting?
they're low and and again, everybody can do it their own way. It's like make your own pasta sauce, right? If you like it spicy, if you like it sweet. We decided for us, we wanted low or high, open or close.
Security pasta.
I
How
have,
many people did
yeah, I love that analogy. That's great. Make your own
security
pasta.
pasta? There you go.
Spicy guy. I'm a spicy guy. Yeah, so that's great. Yeah.
I think I even have Edward's environment. I even have Edward's environment over here.
Oh, good. Let's take a look at it.
But,
What's going on?
But it will be great to see this, and I think that's what Mike's excited about too. Most of the places we have tried this out are lab environments. So like my lab environment is just always being attacked, right? So seeing what it looks like on a normal day-to-day usage is going to be, I think, really interesting.
Mm-hmm. And I have real world, or a live fire of a sort in this lab/environment that I have, where we have real users and stuff in it. I've looked at it and it's been super interesting understanding what has happened, and I can also see some false positives, because when I saw failed login attempts and stuff like that, is some of my users in my environment who either have forgotten their password, they're trying to reset it, and the first thing it tipped me off, like, did I deploy a self-service password reset to be able to do this, and this right here happened, like, yeah, I did. This person just have forgotten how to enroll themselves. But yeah, that's my environment, because that's what I'm looking at. The only thing that's different about mine than it's in yours, if you just showed like when I go into the actual workbook, let me see. I'm going to go into the StaT workbook. They keep adding stuff. I can hear it. StaT. There we go. Let me take a look. I was trying to. Well, something happened.
I changed it after you mentioned it, so now you should be able to go back.
Oh, okay.
30 or 90 days. So
thank you. I didn't want to break it. So Andrew and I were talking, and the first they went back was 14 days. I was like, hey, can you make this go back a little bit longer? And I didn't want to go in and break it. But now I can see it. And this is super helpful, because now I can go back and look at patterns and trends. And let me tell you something else that it does. It also lets me value the detection. Because when I look at this, I go back to the analytics that help alert this off. And like, this is too sensitive. So I can go back and adjust the parameters in the actual detection analytics in Sentinel and say, no, this is not a high, this is a low. Or I can set the threshold and say, instead of 5 occurrences of this incident, I want 10. Now, if it's still resonating after I make those changes, then maybe someone else is beating on my environment and they actually are trying to get in. So I like this right here to allow me to go back and put efficiency to the analytic rules as firing off, because in my environment, a lot of this stuff is, you saw it, they said that my data collector overload. Yeah. That's because my domain controller is underpowered. So it's just getting beat up on. That's what it is.
Well, I think
gig of RAM? Sorry.
I was gonna say, it's just interesting too, because if you want to go see why, like normally a failed login attempt to the Azure portal, I wouldn't expect that to get a high risk score. But if we go back and we see why, it's because there were a ton of, right? We see all the related alerts, right? So all of these were happening within the same time period. So even though that was low, then we add the 50, the 50, the 25, the 15 of all of the other ones, right? Plus 4 different MITRE tactics. That's what takes us to that high. And again, we could go in and maybe we decided these scores are too high for that particular reason. But that's why we recommend starting with that scoring, just, for a few weeks, who knows, even months, to make sure, we don't want you automatically closing incidents and then being like, wait, that was something super important, right? So once you get comfortable that these are actually what they should be, then we can start taking that automation for closing them. Or as Mike said, just giving you more data enrichment, right? If it's a certain IP that's in a watch list, then we can go and, do a who is on it or something, right?
Mm-hmm. And I love the customization, because if you go back one to where you were showing the actual right there, you'll notice that on that third incident, it has a score of 565, and it's a low severity. But you see some other scores that it's like the tipping point between high and low is this. And you're trying to go in and figure it out, but being able to go see where the individual scores came from and adjust it, that's huge. Because I'm going to put a higher emphasis on identity attacks, right? I want like someone's beating on my environment, trying to, spray me, conditional stuff me, impersonate me. I'm going to give those more credence than this device happened or this thing did that, or I'm in a lab, so maybe a port scan seems malicious and nefarious, but it was just me running Nessus or something. I'm going to play with this a little bit more because like item number 11866 has a score of 510, which is a low. But if you go up to 11962, it's also a low. So the severities don't necessarily correlate to the risk score, but this product allows you to make them sane, right? And yeah, man, this is all right. Okay, I might have to be a cookie licker on this project. And Andrea knows what that means. I come in, I do one little thing, like I was instrumental in creating this StaT product, right? All I did was spell check it.
We used to call it cherry picking and cookie licking.
Cherry picking, cookie licking. I want to be part of the winning team.
Oh my goodness.
All day.
Great things here today. This is great.
Oh my God. So what's the next evolution of this? I know that this is, you learn as you go, but we were talking about more automation at the end for closure resolution. But if you got a pet thing that you want to do in here and you want to fine tune, what is on your thing, Mike? What do you want to see a little bit more of it?
I think Brody, he nailed it, right? I think we want to start bringing in other third-party solutions where we can go query it. I think that's super smart, because the more we can do to check other things that an analyst, like I said, would do normally, right? Go check the proxy logs. Go check if there's click-throughs happening by this user, right? Is this user out of office? I think there's a module for that. So
smart.
I think there's a lot of things that you can kind of expand on. There is what gets me excited. And then what do we do next with this thing? I run my SOC, my production environment for my entire family, all my XDR and Sentinel and Defender for Cloud and all my servers and applications that I have in the cloud. And I don't look at my Sentinel ever. I have a Teams chat for my SecOps, and I have my email ad, and then when the incident reaches a certain threshold, it goes there, and then I go pay attention to it. So I think it meets the needs too of smaller customers, right? That can't watch the dashboard every day, right? So I'm excited to kind of give it to those type customers, but also the large ones. I'm not going to say that the large ones are going to be fun, but I think what I really am passionate about doing this for is the smaller customers that need some automation.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm working with a customer. It's a 2-person shop right now, and we are under a major security transformation with them. And to Rod's point, there's just not enough resources to bring people on and enhance that. So, Mike, to your point, SMBs or enterprise, anywhere in between, it seems like organizations of any size could really take advantage of this. Go ahead, Andrea. Sorry, I cut you off there.
No. It's the same thing Mike was just talking about too, is that, that the StaT module can also kick off another playbook. So you could tag something, then kick off that playbook that, the first playbook is like the second playbook to send the email to you, on the weekend, or send the email, or, post something in Teams for you so that you aren't, trapped here at the, portal.azure.com.
So shout out and to our listener in Australia, Paul, whose company, has a unique focus and a primary focus on helping SMBs achieve security maturity. Please deploy this, Paul, and then come back and tell us your experience, because you work primarily with SMBs who have this need. You're running this and you got 2 people. They can't make the sauce as well as serve the sauce. But Paul, if you're listening in Australia, or if you watch the show later, please deploy it and come back and give us your feedback. You have a lot of SMB customers to be able to see this. And this is great, because part of being a small shop is I don't have time for a heavy lift. This can't be a 2-week deployment for me. I need to be able to get something in and be able to do it. And this is very light. So someone just put in, my typical business customers, 1 to 10, need more help than most. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Before we go, Noodle McT Woodle, whose name I've been practicing as they are a regular contributor and moderator in our community, he asked if we can make this work or ingest Azure AD B2C signals in this overall solution. Mike, have you looked at that at all in your dealings with developing this workbook?
I mean, Andrea, anything we can KQL query, any tables that we can get access to via Sentinel, we can create, create information on it and enrich the incident either with that data or do something with that data.
Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I don't go.
I'm going to say yes, you can, because this has nothing to do with the workbook. It is how you're getting telemetry in. I think we talked about it on a show that a customer did not allow direct access by B2C into their environment. They created a totally separate environment, and then they allowed B2C to that environment, and then they delegated an environment that they own over to it. And then we could see the stuff in Azure AD that was happening. So yes, if you can enable the ability to grab telemetry from whatever your configuration and integration is, and then it reports back, I don't see why not. Now, I know about B2B. I'm not really sure about B2C, but B2B, yes, because I played with a customer and they were bringing this stuff in. It was pretty slick how they did it. They were hyper. I can't even think of the word now, but yes, the answer to that is B2B, yes. B2C, I'd have to see the thing, but I believe you could.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's all about signal ingestion. That makes sense. That's a great answer. Yeah, cool. Thank you for the questions, everybody. Yeah.
Yep.
Amazing. I can't wait. Tomorrow I'm going to look so smart. Thank you to Andrea and Mike and Brian who couldn't make it here today. And I'm going to recommend this to a very needy customer. And I'm looking forward to providing some feedback in the future and reaching back to both of you, because this was fantastic. And maybe down the road when we have version 2, platinum extra gold encrusted version, we could get you back on and talk about it some more.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, we do believe that this is at least another discussion part series, right? We're always trying to cram stuff into 45 minutes to an hour, but I think that especially in an environment that you got some really unique or very interesting stuff coming in, bring that over and say, hey, let me show you that this is pretty neat. But no, this is great stuff. Thanks so much for coming on, Andrea and Mike. Maybe we'll find Brian the next time, he doesn't big time us and not come on, and have him on the show.
Well, thank you for having us. It was a treat.
So I'm looking at the GitHub repository. I think since we did mention Connects earlier, and we're trying to show our impact, I think we should probably set some goals here, right? So 35 stars and only 10 forks for that repo. To me, that's, for as valuable this is, that's kind of small numbers. I think we need to really, on the show and with our customers, push this stuff. And the folks that are listening in, absolutely, we need to push this thing. This needs to get a bigger, much wider audience.
Yeah, and to our listeners that will fork it and then rate it and then deploy it with proof, you'll be entered to win some Microsoft Security Insight swag. I won't promise cookies because Ra's in charge of the cookies, but we'll get you some swag. We'll send it out to you. You guys know I'll put some in the mail for you and send it to you.
He will.
Right?
He'll always send you something.
Yeah. So all our listeners.
For our listeners, one more time, it's aka.ms/mstat. So
MStat. Mike, Sierra.
Hold on.
Sierra.
For you. There you go.
Tango, Alpha, Tango. Hey, it happens, man. I haven't had enough of this. To all our listeners, this is, if you ain't drinking, you ain't thinking. There you go.
All right.
Thank you very much, team, for coming on. We appreciate it.
All right.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Talk to everyone next week.